Hello, everybody, and welcome to Atheist Sunday School, your one-stop shop for everything Atheist Sunday and school. And boy, do we have a show for you today. Today, we are joined by Jim the Mustache Majors. Woo! Yes, and
Everybody's done.
yes, we are finally up and running. We were having some very serious issues, and it was a real pain in the ass.
Yeah, it was. But luckily, that's all over now.
Luckily, Jim was here to help us out.
Yes, Jim, you're promoted to tech guy on the Milwaukee Atheist team.
I accept my promotion, and I want double what you're paying me now.
You'll get it. Okay.
Actually, you can have double my salary.
Yeah, you have double his salary.
Yeah.
Oh, nobody wants double your salary.
Yeah. 2 times 0 is still 0. So today we're covering Psalms 78 through 82.
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
And so this one is specifically just really interesting. So instead of just having, a regular title for this episode, I decided to go with a topic that we will definitely discuss. Now, this isn't going to be a super in-depth discussion of that topic because it's way bigger than we could possibly cover while discussing a psalm, but it's definitely included in that discussion. So we're going to be talking about it. But how about we get started with the 100-point show?
Yeah, let's do it to it.
Okay. So I have a question for you.
What is your question?
What is the name of today's WWE show?
It's Sunday, so it's not Raw or SmackDown.
That's right. You're on the right track.
Is it? Give me a hint. Is it a special name or is it like a standard?
It's a special name.
Okay. I'm gonna say WWE presents Super Ultra King of the Hill Battle to the Death Extreme 2020.
That could be a name for something in the future, but no, that is incorrect.
How? It couldn't be in the future. It's 2020.
Yeah.
Could still be in the future. Do you have any answers to that, Jim? If you unmute yourself. Jim?
Jim, you're muted, buddy.
Jim, we
Super
are
muted.
Yeah. Oh shoot! Is this happening now?
No way. That's ridiculous. He was just talking before. People heard him.
He was just talking. What has happened?
I don't know. Well, whatever. You got it wrong,
Hey,
Jim.
hello?
Oh,
he's back.
Yeah, here he is.
Okay. The Sunday SmackDown is the Royal Rumble 2020.
No, but that's closer.
NXT's presents Slavels.
You know what?
Hell in a Cell.
You know what?
Just the last part.
Chris
part.
is the closest there.
What?
Because it's NXT take over Portland today.
I thought it was the Royal Rumble.
No, dude, Royal Rumble was last month.
Well, how was it?
I mean, I think it was pretty good. It was all right. It wasn't bad at all.
All right.
Yeah.
So, in the Star Wars canon, there's a bad dude who is a fallen Jedi, became a Sith, who had a double-bladed lightsaber. And this caused the Jedi Order within the prequels to have a bias against apprentices forming double-bladed lightsabers upon completion of their training. What is the name of the character?
I want to try to answer it. Is it Darth Maul?
No.
Damn. That's my only possible guess.
Is it Darth Sidious?
No. Chris,
No.
do you have a guess?
Ah, man. I should know something about this because I've heard a lot about it. I'm sorry.
You said double bladed, and I went with
It's gotta be in like an old canon lore way before.
Yep. Yep.
Any of that shit.
Exar Kun.
Exar Kun, the immortal emperor. I should have.
Exar Kun forfeited his ability to eat snacks while lightsabering.
Yes, Exar Kun. He was a bad dude. Really bad dude.
Tim, your question?
Yep.
I mean, from my understanding, Darth Maul was a bad dude, wasn't he?
Yeah,
Nah, he's all right. He's conflicted.
was-
very
yeah.
nuanced character.
Yeah, very nuanced.
Oh, well,
So
I have no
what?
idea.
Yeah.
Anyways, Jim, what is your 100-point show question?
My 100-point show question is, what is the longest psalm in the Bible? The longest historical psalm in the Bible.
Is it Psalm 78?
That 50 points each.
Yay! Woo!
Is
High
it Psalm
five!
78?
Yeah, and
Yeah,
then the
you
other.
only get 25 points.
That's not
Chris.
fair. That's not fair. 100 points each. That's not fair.
Wow, I don't even want them. I said it afterwards intentionally.
You get nothing, Chris.
Good, thank you.
The other really long one is Psalm 119.
They're all long. Let's be honest.
No, they're not. Well, I guess it feels really long, but they're not all long. They just feel really long.
Feels long.
Yeah.
That's Well, that's what she said.
Yes, it is.
Anyways,
Even though it wasn't long.
do we have any announcements that you want to go over? What's our donation drive at?
Our donation drive is actually seeing a little bit of progress.
Yes.
The total right now is about it's about 480. We're about 480.
About 480. And once we hit 666, we're transmuting something into something else using alchemy.
Yes, alchemy. Once we hit $666.
I've already started. Don't tell anyone.
Yep. Well, anything else?
No, I mean I don't really have any announcements.
Okay. Well then, Psalm 78. A must. Well, I have the King James
Yes,
version of
yes.
the Bible.
You have the King James version. I have the English Standard Version.
We also have Jim Majors, who has.
What version are you using? I
And
think.
also no points.
Yeah. What version of the Bible are you using today?
Oh, I'm using the NIV.
Fantastic.
We also have the Robert Alter version of the Hebrew Bible, a translation with commentary.
We also have, quite a lot of stuff on this table right now. But we also have the the Old Testament survey from the New Interpreter's Bible.
We also have the Oxford Companion of the Bible.
Yes. We also have The Origins of Biblical Monotheism by Mark S. Smith.
We also have On the Book of Psalms by Sarna.
And Psalms Old and New from Ben Witherington III.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and we also have a translation of the Dead Sea Scrolls, but we're going to need that later. We're not going to need that today.
Right.
But later in the Psalms, we will be using it for some of the Psalms that are not part of the canon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, today we're covering Psalms 78 through 82.
Yes, we are.
And I'll start us off with the King James version of Psalm 78.
Yes, and there's one important thing to note about this psalm. It is a very long one.
Yes.
And then there's some very interesting stuff about it, actually, which I have special notes on.
Yes.
So
I have one very special note for you.
What's that?
My friend? And that is that if we watch all of the Atheist Sunday Schools, Reuben has had the most reading historically.
Yeah,
Yes.
we know that.
Is that crazy though?
No.
That he also gets the longest readings. Do you just do this to him?
This isn't even on purpose.
This is your fault.
This isn't even on
Lawrence.
purpose. You and I, we split this up together.
Oh, poorly.
Okay. Well, it's
Go
your
rewatch
fault
everything.
Well, I also think it's important whenever we go into Psalm 78 that we keep the last couple of psalms in mind, because this is like a new start for Asaph and for the children of Israel, and this is kind of his way of reminding them not to fall back and to learn from the past and not to repeat it.
All right.
Yeah, that's definitely a big part of it. But I think that because the really interesting stuff that I got from Witherington, we'll be quoting this stuff later once we start the reading. But yeah, as we mentioned before, apart from Psalm 119, this is the longest psalm, and verse 36 is the exact middle point.
Well, I'll tell you when we get there.
Yeah, we'll see that.
Well, then I'll start us off.
Yes.
Give ear, O my people, to my law. Incline your ears to the words of my mouth. I will open my mouth in a parable I will utter dark sayings of old, which we have heard and known, and our fathers have told us. We will not hide them from their children, showing to the generation to come the praises of the Lord and his strength and his wonderful works that he hath done. For he established a testimony in Jacob and appointed a law in Israel, which he commanded our fathers, that they should make them known to their children.
So just, I got to interrupt you just real quick. So something really interesting about this, when it talks about saying that he will open his mouth in parables and that he will utter these things that are hidden since the foundations of the world. In Matthew 13, they have this as a prophecy of Jesus, and Jesus actually tells the crowd that he will open his mouth and speak these parables and these long hidden things. Even though here in Psalm 78 it says that they will, they talk about passing them down and not letting them be forgotten. So I guess they didn't succeed there.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's also not like, look at my writings kind of passing down either. It's,
Right.
I think, a reference to the oral tradition in Judaism.
Right. Yeah. Like parables and stories, just like Jesus had told. Supposedly those parables were the parables that were forgotten and hidden, even though they were already known.
Mm-hmm.
So on the use of the word parable also, Witherington has a note on this. So the opening of the... Yeah, it is. And also we got some reverb, by the way, from you, Jim. So if you have,
I'm sorry.
if you have headphones, that'd be great. But
I'll
anyways,
compromise.
I'll continue reading this thing. The opening of the song is especially important because it tells us what follows as a parable or a riddle meant to convey some wisdom by means of metaphor and comparison. The word we translate parable is in fact mashal, and the word for riddle is, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, hidot. The latter term refers to puzzling or dark speech, whereas the former refers to various kinds of metaphorical comparisons that can be enigmatic. Hidot signals that the psalm will deal with deep or profound matters. It is a mistake to think of a parable simply as a short fictional narrative, a la the parable of the Good Samaritan, when in fact even very short metaphorical comparisons, like the phrase, physician, heal thyself, can be called a parable. An aphorism, a riddle, a proverb, a maxim, or a short fictional narrative can all be called a mashal, or a parable in the Greek, he notes. Quote, the Psalm's historical recital is a riddle in the sense that it reveals the continuing mystery of divine grace and human frailty. The recitation is more than a description of the past. It is a rehearsal so the present and future might be wondrous.
There's also,
but not everyone will understand it.
Yeah.
There's also a bit here that Alter goes into that's a little different, that you can go over that.
Sure. Yes. So about the first verse?
Yeah.
So hearken, his translation, hearken my people to my teaching, lend your ear to the sayings of my mouth. This sort of formal and formulaic beginning to the poem is reminiscent of didactic poetic texts such as Sharat Hazinu, the Song of Moses, Deuteronomy 32. In fact, some of the phrases used, for example, verse 8, a wayward, rebellious generation, are similar to formulations in Deuteronomy 32. This is a historical psalm which recapitulates in poetry the plagues narrative, and by the way, not all the plagues, just so we're clear, like 7 of them, which is, once we get into reading it, we can talk about why the other ones were not included. The plagues narrative and the victory at the Sea of Reeds from Exodus, as well as certain later events. The narrative purpose is the reason for the lengthiness of the psalm. For once, the scholarly conjecture about a ritual purpose for the psalm seems plausible. it distinctly looks as though it originally served a function of commemoration of national history, cast in the mnemonic form of verse, which might have also lent itself to public chanting, perhaps in a temple ceremony. The strong didactic bent of the commemoration is reflected in the fact that the hortatory preamble runs to the end of verse 8, much of it in a long run-on sentence. Man,
Just like this
those
one.
run-ons, yeah, just like
Right.
this one.
Yeah.
And we're currently at the beginning of verse 6, so we're not even there.
Yeah,
I guess it would be a different verse because he includes the subscript as a verse in there.
sure.
And,
It must
and in
also...
other places that you see them saying to incline their ears. It wasn't necessarily for the purpose of memorization or for committing to memory or anything like that, but rather listen to understand.
Yeah.
You don't listen to just robot it back to somebody, but in this way, when you're inclining your ears, they could care less whether or not you memorize it, but they want you to understand it.
Yeah, definitely.
I'll continue then.
Yep.
That the generation to come, children is right beneath it.
Yeah.
The generation to come might know them, even the children which should be born, who should arise and declare them to their children, that they might set their hope in God and not forget the works of God, but keep his commandments, and might not be as their fathers, a stubborn and rebellious generation, a generation that set not their heart aright, and whose spirit was not steadfast with God. There's the first, one of the few instances of a period so far.
Oh, yeah.
The children of Ephraim, being armed and carrying bows, turned back.
So hold on. The note there on the
You should stop while there was a period he was making that.
Yeah, I was giving you a break. To,
well,
Because there's going to be this 10 run-on
but you
sentences.
had to get to the Ephraimite. That's what I wanted to say.
Okay.
So there's a good amount of commentary about this. So first things first, from Alter, the literal sense of the Hebrew is, it says Ephraimites, deft wielders of bows. The literal sense of the Hebrew is, quote, armed with and shooters of bows. But the conjunction of near synonyms in all likelihood indicates an intensification of the term, hence deft wielders in the translation. The specific historical incident has not been identified, though it is clearly one in which the Ephraimites showed cowardice on the battlefield. And I'm going to look through some more of these commentaries real quick because I have notes everywhere. But we will get back to the Ephraimite because I know that when doing the readings, there was a good amount of stuff on it. So I don't know, maybe Jim has something to add on that.
well, let me finish the verse.
Sure,
Okay.
sure.
The children of Ephraim, being armed and carrying bows, turned back in the day of battle. That's verse 9 from the KJV.
Yeah.
Go ahead and read through 11.
Okay. They kept not the covenant of God and refused to walk in his law, and forgat his works and his wonders that he had showed them. So that's the end of 11.
Right. So they, so when it says that they may declare them to their children, it's something that they want to pass on. But it seems to me that in this case, it's to not be like their fathers would be to not lose faith in God, or to not disobey so easily. You know, they had just come out of a series of in and out of favor with God that at least Asaph in this instance doesn't want to go back to that. So he's pretty much begging that you teach your children to teach their children to teach their children to not rebel against God.
Yeah, and I think let's talk about the Ephraimites here.
Right.
And then I think in this discussion we can also talk about dating because this is a weird one.
Right. Well, the Ephraimites here are directly set up as a parallel to these fathers, or they are directly the fathers who have forgotten the ways of God that they're talking about.
And Ephraim as a tribe was, I believe it was the largest, if not the largest, it was one of the largest tribes of Israel. But as far as the military capabilities, Ephraim had it. So, but in this instance, when they are talking about Ephraim, they're talking about all of Israel, but Israel's forces.
Yeah. There's a note here. The contrast between Ephraim, i.e., the northern kingdom, and Judah, the southern kingdom, is striking. While God rejected Ephraim, he chose Judah. And then we're going to get into that a little bit later. David, the most famous of the kings of Judah, is described in positive terms. He is the shepherd of his people, and he led his people with a skillful hand. One can deduce from this description that this psalm originated in Judah, and that the intention was to legitimize the dynasty of David and the southern kingdom above that of the northern kingdom. So when it comes to, we're going to keep reading, but just keep in mind the contrast between Israel and Judah.
Right.
In this psalm.
Now they're getting into the Egyptian stuff. Marvelous things did he in the sight of their fathers in the land of Egypt, in the field of Zoan. He divided the sea and caused them to pass through. He made the waters to stand as a heap. Hey, Lawrence, how many drops of water?
We're not doing this.
No.
No.
Let's just do the molar mass. That's fine.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
What is the exact mass of a heap of water?
I don't know.
Okay. In the daytime, also he led them with a cloud, and all the night with a light of fire. So this is in the desert.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because remember,
it's talking about the pillar and then the pillar of fire at night.
Yep.
Yeah. He clave the rocks in the wilderness and gave them drink as out of the great depths.
When the rock got smited.
Yeah, he says
some water.
Moses, technically.
Yeah.
He brought streams also out of the rock and caused waters to run down like rivers. And they sinned yet more against him by provoking the Most High in the wilderness. And they tempted God in their heart by asking meat for their lust. Yea, they spake against God. They said, can God furnish a table in the wilderness?
Yeah, sure.
Why wouldn't God be able to furnish a table in the wilderness?
Well, I think this is definitely more of a metaphorical, just trying to make a point kind of thing.
Obviously, but it's a bad metaphor.
Sure.
Behold!
Behold.
He smote the rock that the waters gushed out and the streams overflowed. Can he give bread also? Can he provide flesh for his people? So food.
Actually, hold on. Sorry to go a little off topic here, but back to the Ephraim reference. Some of the references in the song are, this is from Witherington, by the way. Some of the references in the song are shrouded in the mists of history. But the reference in verse 9 to Ephraim turning back seems to refer to their fleeing before the Philistines, even though Ephraim was well armed. That's at least Witherington's conclusion. The result was the disastrous loss of the Ark of the Covenant, and that's back in 1 Samuel.
Yes.
Yeah.
Therefore the Lord, the Lord heard this and was wroth. So a fire was kindled against Jacob, and anger also came up against Israel, because they believed not in God and trusted not in his salvation.
God's a toddler.
Yeah. Though he had commanded the clouds from above and opened the doors of heaven, and had rained down manna upon them to eat, and had given them of the corn of heaven. Man did eat angels' food. He sent them meat to the full.
Eating angels' food.
Manna.
Yeah. What verse was that?
25.
princely bread a man did eat, provisions he sent them to sate them.
Yeah,
And there's no note on that.
No note.
Yeah, it's the bread of heaven.
Okay, the bread of heaven. Gotcha.
Angel's food cake. Your
Yeah,
favorite.
Angel's food cake. Delicious. None of that
Just
devil's
raining
food
down.
cake, though.
What about those deviled eggs?
Oh, those aren't
Incinerating
allowed.
up into the atmosphere, and it just burns up in the atmosphere. Nobody gets any cake.
Yeah. He caused an east wind to blow in the heaven, and by his power he brought in the south wind. This is sounding like Enoch.
A little bit, yeah.
He rained flesh also upon them as dust, and feathered fowls like as the sand of the sea. And he let it fall in the midst of their camp round about their habitations.
In the King James version, it either says seeds or corn falls from heaven. That's what manna is. That it's or grain.
Yes,
that it's
the
not,
corn of heaven.
That it's not bread, but it's the means of which to make bread.
Yes.
Yeah, that's Reuben's version. So it's right there.
Yep. And this is, as we know, the best version of the English Bible. So,
Amen.
yep. So they did eat and were well filled, for he gave them their own desire. They were not estranged from their lust, but while their meat was yet in their mouths, the wrath of God came upon them, and slew the fattest of them, and smote down the chosen men of Israel. For all this they sinned still, and believed not for his wondrous works. Therefore their days he did consume in vanity, and their years in trouble. When he slew them, then they sought him, and they returned and inquired early after God. And they remembered that God was their rock, and the high God their Redeemer. Nevertheless, they did flatter him with their mouth, and they lied unto him with their tongues. For their heart was not right with him, neither were they steadfast in his covenant. But he, being full of compassion, forgave their iniquity and destroyed them not. Yea, many a time turned he his anger away, and did not stir up all his wrath. You know, I like how they frame not committing genocide as doing a good thing.
You know, I like you guys. I'm gonna not kill you.
If we think about
But no mouth worship for these guys. Like God's like, no. Mouth worship is strictly reserved for those who flattered me before death.
Yeah. For he remembered that they were but flesh, a wind that passeth away and cometh not again. So, you know, if you're a Christian, you can't believe in reincarnation. If you're a Jew,
Well,
you can't
I mean,
either. Right?
sure, yeah.
It's implicit in this verse, right? Cometh not again.
Yeah, this is the one their one chance here on earth.
Yep.
Which is why God was like, you know, I guess I should be a little nicer to you.
Well, and it's only because Moses stood in between them and God. You know, he's like, whoa, calm down, guys.
Yeah, and Abraham had to do the same thing.
You know, I could see this verse being used in an apologetic kind of way to say in support of a theology that would claim that Jesus was not human to begin with, right? Because man passeth away and cometh not again.
Oh, I see okay.
Well, there's 330 prophecies in the Old Testament. We're bound to run into a couple of them.
Yeah. Anyways.
Prophecies.
How oft did they provoke him in the wilderness and grieve him in the desert? Yea, they turned back and tempted God and limited the Holy One of Israel. They remembered not his hand, nor the day when he delivered them from the enemy. How he had wrought his signs in Egypt and his wonders in the field of Zoan.
All right, let's go. Let's count them all up and let's figure out which ones are left out, shall we?
Yeah. Actually, Matthew refers to this where Jesus says, or where they're talking about Jesus and says that Jesus didn't do many mighty works was it in Nazareth because of their disbelief? Or was it in Jerusalem? I'm trying to remember. But anyway, Jesus says that they said that Jesus didn't do mighty works there because of their unbelief. And so like that's kind of how it's them tempting God and him not doing anything because they disbelieved for so long and disobeyed.
Yes.
Well, I guess he's got some reasoning right here.
Let's list off these plagues.
Yes.
And had turned their rivers into blood.
So a note on the bloody rivers. The term for rivers is taken from the Egyptian word for Nile, Hebrew Yeor.
Knum, right?
It says
Knum
Yeor.
is the guardian of the Nile.
But here it is used poetically in the plural. This verse begins the narration of the plagues of Egypt, which continues to the end of verse 51. And there are only 7 plagues mentioned in this psalm. And they are not entirely in the same order as the ones reported in Exodus. Though, as in Exodus, turning the Nile into blood is at the beginning. And the killing of the firstborn is at the end. The scholarly... I'm going to finish this section, and then you can leave a note on it. Yeah. The scholarly inference that these lines reflect a different tradition from the one registered in Exodus is by no means necessary. That is a poetic recapitulation of the familiar plagues narrative from Exodus would not have been obliged to repeat all the material from Exodus or to follow the identical order. I'm not sure. We'll talk about that. Let's see how it looks.
Right. Well, he doesn't say first he did this, then he did this.
Sure.
Did this.
Right. And in my opinion, the order wasn't important. What was important was that each one of these plagues specifically lined up with an Egyptian god or goddess that showed that he was better than them. Like, if, for instance, the river of blood, Osiris is said to have the Nile as his bloodstream. As his literal blood veins, and then the Egyptian god Knum is the guardian of the Nile. So he's basically saying that God's better than all of these other ones. Or like the next one, like the swarms. It's Imhotep is a god of medicine, and he's also a god who stopped a plague of flies and locusts and lice and stuff.
Oh.
Gotcha. Okay. And I've been looking for more stuff on that. I haven't been able to. I mean, I'll ask you or Chris about it.
All right.
Yeah. I've got a book that's just on that.
Cool. He turned their rivers into blood and their floods so that they could not drink.
Is it hold on? Is the book? Is it Sarna's? Is that the one you're talking about?
No.
Okay, good. I don't like Sarna.
It doesn't start with a P. I can't remember what it is.
All
right. He sent diverse sorts of flies among them, which devoured them, and frogs, which destroyed them. Obviously, Kek is the Egyptian god of the frogs.
Yeah, Ruben.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
I got that one.
Ridiculous.
So,
why are we here?
We got frogs. He gave also their increase unto the caterpillar and their labor unto the locust. He destroyed...
Oh, by the way, yours says caterpillar.
Yes.
Mine says cicada.
Oh. Those are very different.
Those are, in fact, very different.
Yeah, they're almost unrelated.
And it's not the same thing that John the Baptist ate. Let's just clarify that those locusts are not not insects.
Yeah. He destroyed their vines with hail and their sycamore trees with frost. He gave up their cattle also to the hail and their flocks to hot thunderbolts. Yeah, this is like a Zeus thing.
It's a way to show off.
Yeah.
I mean, storm god.
Yeah.
I'm so much better than you, Newt.
Yeah. He cast upon them the fierceness of his anger, wrath, and indignation and trouble by sending evil angels among them. Evil angels.
What are evil angels?
What are
what
evil
that God has
angels?
control over?
What verse are we looking at?
49.
49. Okay. He sent them. Yeah, he sent them again. Yeah, he sent against them his smoldering fury, anger, indignation, and distress, a cohort of evil messengers.
Evil messengers.
Yes.
So it sounds like this anger and wrath and indignation.
Is this
the
supposed to be
messengers
the?
are like the personification of those things?
Is Is this a reference to the angels of the Passover?
Is it?
Yes, it's the angels of destruction, the same
Yeah.
angels that rained down fire and brimstone on Sodom and Gomorrah.
Mm.
Those guys gotta have names. Come on, they're cool.
Yeah, why don't they have... They should get names.
I feel. I mean, I'm sure somewhere they have names.
Maybe.
Do you think that's their only job, or do you think maybe they like also get God coffee?
Well, it sounds...
No, I like the idea that they only destroy things.
Right, well, it
They
sounds...
show up and shit gets destroyed.
They also Uber at night and their days off.
Ah,
Well, at least
that's a good way to make some extra money.
in the altar translation, it seems like they're literally the personification of these aspects of God, right?
Well, I mean, that's kind of how I feel about angels. Is in general here, I feel like they're just like extensions of God.
Right. They're messengers of these different
messengers.
things.
And sometimes delivering a message means breaking a kneecap.
Yeah.
Puppets and marionettes.
Puppets and marionettes. Okay.
Yeah, kind of like he pulls their strings and they do whatever.
Like when he made that covenant with Abraham, he made him an offer that he couldn't refuse.
Like mediums through which to act through, like whenever he
Yeah.
completely ignored Lot offering his daughters to be raped.
Let's not. I hate this book sometimes. God damn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He made a way to his anger. By the way, if you want to learn a whole shitload about angels, go watch our Enoch episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Friday Apocryphal podcast, also
Yeah.
great.
Yep. He made a way to his anger. He spared not their soul from death, but gave their life over to the pestilence, and smote all the firstborn in Egypt, the chief of their strength in the tabernacles of Ham. But made his own people to go forth like a sheep and guided them in the wilderness like a flock. We're getting a little bit of reverb from you, Jim.
Yeah, you gotta get those headphones, my friend.
Come on, buddy.
I hear Ruben
Sorry,
like
man.
I hear.
Is that better?
Well, I guess we'll find out.
Hey,
Yeah, I think so.
I guess so.
But made his own people to go forth like sheep and guided them in the wilderness like a flock. And he led them on safely that they feared not, but the sea overwhelmed their enemies. And he brought them to the border of his sanctuary, even to the mountain, this mountain, which his right hand had purchased. What's that about, Lawrence?
Which verse?
54.
54. Yeah, he brought them to his holy realm, the mount his right hand had acquired. The language of this verse is meant to recall the Song of the Sea in Exodus 15:13 and 15:17.
Okay. He cast out the heathen.
I highly doubt it's purchased, like
Yeah.
bought.
Yeah. Like God shows up and he's like, well, I'll give
Here's-
you 50 shekels.
and he handed it to him with his right hand.
Yep. He cast out the heathen also before them and divided them as an inheritance by line and made the tribes of Israel to dwell in their tents. Yet they tempted and provoked the Most High God and kept not his testimonies, but turned back and dealt unfaithfully like their fathers. They were turned aside like a deceitful bow, kind of returning to that Ephraimite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever made like a bow out of PVC pipe and you end up like it going drastically wrong?
No, I have not done that.
Not done that.
Oh, well, I grew up in the redneck hood, so I've made many PVC bows, and whenever they go wrong, that's a deceitful bow.
You ever make a PVC flute?
No?
You ever
I
drink
mean,
Bailey's
did
out
you
of a
do?
shoe?
They sound pretty good.
How many non sequiturs are we gonna have here? Okay, no, but I've made a crossbow out of I guess an art canvas or easel or whatever, like the thing that holds the actual canvas up. That worked fine until it didn't, and then it was a deceitful bow.
Yeah.
It started breaking itself.
Well said.
For they provoked him to anger with their high places and moved him to jealousy with their graven images. I wonder if the Catholic version of the Bible includes that verse.
We got to add a Catholic version to our shopping list at some point.
Yeah, I mean, surprise, surprise. The more Israelites moved